You know, I was thinking about what video to do this week, and then I realized I've never done a video on how to remove malware. So today, I'm going to show you my process of removing malware. Not sure why I haven't done this video before, but better late than never, I guess. Stay tuned. So I started this channel in March of 2020, and this video is coming out in January of 2025. So this channel is almost 5 years old, and in that time I have released a video every single week without fail. Yet, this is the first time I'm talking about malware removal. I think part of the reason why is because malware removal really isn't as prevalent as it has been in the past. There has been a time where almost all I did was malware removal, but in recent years, it's just not very common for a computer to be truly infected. Yes, there are instances where people install malicious software, but it's not like it used to be, where systems were just straight infected with viruses. Nowadays, it's more common to just have ad-supported software and other minor forms of malware. But it's still a good idea to know how to remove malware from a computer, so that's what we're going to do today. But first, I gotta pay some bills, so check out today's sponsor. Is your copy of Windows 10 unactivated? Well, it doesn't have to be, because with today's sponsor, VIP SCD Key, you can get a valid Windows 10 license for under $20. Stop dealing with that stupid watermark on the desktop, the valid license for Windows 10. Also, with an activated copy of Windows 10, you can upgrade to Windows 11 for free. Just go to the link in the description below and pick up a valid Windows 10 license key. During checkout, use the code CYBERCPU for a 25% discount. Once you have your key, go to your activation settings in Windows 10 and click on the link that says Change Product Key. Enter the product key you just purchased and hit Activate. Now you don't have to deal with that stupid watermark that come with running an unactivated copy of Windows 10. Now, on with the video. So yes, like I said, it's not very common to have a computer that's just straight up infected with viruses. Not that it's not possible, but since the release of Windows 10, it's just not as common. Windows operating systems have become a lot more secure since the days of Windows 7 and, of course, previous versions of Windows. But much of that has to do with the fact that Microsoft has actually taken a more proactive approach to security. And you know, like Microsoft does with most of its software, this entry into the antivirus market came through acquisition, of course. Back in the early 2000s, Microsoft purchased multiple antivirus and other malware companies like Giant Anti-Spyware and a Romanian antivirus company that I'm sure I'm going to butcher, but the name of it is Cyberi, I guess? A name that, ironically, my spell check tried to autocorrect as Subaru, but I'm sure there's no affiliation. Either way, these acquisitions led to what we know today as Windows Security. Windows Security didn't become a full-fledged antivirus until the later part of the Windows 7 era with the introduction of Microsoft Security Essentials. This was a standalone real-time antivirus that you could install on a Windows 7 computer. It became really popular because it was really good and free. However, it still required people to install it. It wasn't until the release of Windows 10 that Microsoft integrated MSE into Windows, and at that time, they renamed it to Windows Defender. Personally, I think this is one of the reasons why virus infections are so rare nowadays. That at least, and the fact that Windows 10 and 11 are built with a more security focus in mind, especially Windows 11. But that still doesn't mean it's not possible. So let's jump on the system and I'll show you my process of doing malware removal. Okay, so here we are in Windows 11. I've got a lot of the tools that I use out here on the desktop, and all of these, I'm gonna go through each tool and show you how I use it and why I use it and what it's for. But first off, the first thing that you do when you're doing a malware removal isn't just jump on scanners. You have to actually see if the computer's infected, because there's no reason to do a malware removal on a computer that may or may not be infected. So the first thing that I typically do is jump into Control Panel, and in Windows 10 and 11, you're actually gonna have to type it in the start menu in order to get it to open. But once you do, go ahead and click on uninstall a program, and this will give you your add and remove programs where you can kind of go through and see what's installed on the computer. Now, typically what I will do is I will go through and I'll see if there's anything suspicious. And sometimes you can rely on the date that something was installed or the name of certain programs that you just know are malware. Now, some of the programs that I typically look for are like driver updaters and antiviruses that don't have a common name, like unknown antiviruses. Typically, if it's an unknown antivirus, it may very well be a legitimate antivirus that just doesn't have a lot of users. However, in a lot of cases, a lot of security software that doesn't have very common names are actually malware programs that are pretending to be security programs, if that makes any sense. But it's always a good idea to just go through and search some of these programs to kind of find out what they are, because they might be proprietary programs that someone is using for a specific purpose. However, typically you can find out what something is just by searching for the name on Google and seeing what comes up. But what I'll typically do is I'll go through the list of programs that are installed on the computer and see if I can see anything that may or may not be a suspicious program. Like in some cases, the remote desktop connection, this is something that Microsoft installs through Windows Update. However, it's not something that's necessary for a lot of people. And if I have a customer that happened to have had a fake tech support scam where they had somebody remote into their computer, a lot of times I will uninstall this and any other remote software that I see that could have been installed by the person that was scamming my customer. You can also check at the date in which something was installed too, and you can kind of get an idea that, if the infection started on a certain date, you can kind of see everything that was installed around that date, and that can help also. And that's one of the reasons why the installed on date here is a really good feature, because you can kind of see what dates things were actually installed. However, I wouldn't always count on this, because I have seen instances where malware programs will install themselves, but somehow manipulate the date. So they'll be all the way down here in like 2022. And obviously it'll make it less suspicious if it's at an older date. So just keep that in mind while you're looking through add and remove programs. But ultimately, what you're looking for is going to depend on experience. You're just going to have to do this a lot and start to understand patterns and programs that are suspicious. A lot of people might look at this and just not know what it is that they do or don't need to uninstall, and that's understandable. But through practice, you can usually start to understand what kinds of programs that it is that you're looking for and get a good idea. And you can always search Google to find out what a specific program is, so you're not uninstalling something that shouldn't be uninstalled. Now, once we go through this, we can go ahead and close this now. And the next thing I'll typically look at is just the task manager. And essentially what I would do is go through and just kind of scroll through the task manager and see if I see anything that jumps out at me as somewhat suspicious. And this is another situation that's just going to kind of take practice. As you're scrolling through, you can look for things that just shouldn't be the way that you think they should be, like multiple browsers open when you're not running an internet browser at the time, and things of that nature. Just kind of look for stuff that's suspicious. Now, this might not get you any kind of clue on whether or not a computer is infected or not, but sometimes you can find stuff in here that's fairly easy, and sometimes you can't. Another thing you can do is to go up to the actual startup apps and see what things are starting with Windows and try to figure out what those things are. For instance, if you have like a process like this right here, you can see it has no icon, it's the default icon, and it has a name that is unrecognizable. Well, what is that? You can always right click on it. You can click search online in Windows 11 and it'll open up a browser window that'll search for whatever process it is you're looking for. Now, as you can see, this is for the Realtek HD audio driver, so it's a legitimate process. I can go ahead and close this. But you can use that method to kind of go through and get an idea of certain things that are running on the system. Like for instance, I have this files program, which is an alternative files browser that I installed on a video like a year ago, or even longer than that. It was a long time ago that I did a video on multiple file browsers, and I just never uninstalled this file browser, so it's kind of carried along as I've imaged this drive over and over again. It's probably a good idea. Maybe I should actually do a fresh load of Windows for videos in the future, but you know, it is what it is. But essentially what you're gonna wanna do is go through and see if there's anything suspicious in here. And like I said, you can always right click and you can search for the different services to see if there's something that should or shouldn't be on your computer. And you can always click on something and click the disable here if you wanna turn it off to not boot with Windows. And as you can see right here, I have several of those things already disabled on mine. Like I have phone link disabled and I have that files browser disabled, as well as Steam and the terminal app from Microsoft I keep disabled. And the only reason being is because Steam, normally I would have it auto run, but on this system it's just for videos and I only really need Steam when I'm doing games testing, so I don't want it to run in the background when I'm not doing that. But it'll gonna give you an idea of kind of some of the things that you might want to look for. Now, if you want to go a little bit deeper than this, and typically this is the extent that I'll go to when I'm trying to determine if a computer is infected. But there is one more step that you can make that is really beneficial. So if we go ahead and close this right here, and we can open up a program called Process Explorer. And this is a free program that's created by Microsoft, one of their sysinternals tools. And so you can go ahead and download this for free. And when you go ahead and run this, go ahead and right click and hit run as administrator. Always run this program as an administrator because it'll give you a lot more information and a lot more power in what you can do with it. But if we go ahead and run this, go ahead and hit yes at the user account control. And as you can see, it's essentially a really advanced task manager. It just gives you a lot of information. Now, the first thing that I would recommend is to get rid of this dark theme. I find it really difficult to look at. So what I will do is I'll go into view and then I'll go down to go into options, go into theme, and then go ahead and hit a light theme. And that'll make it a little bit easier to look at, but if you like the dark theme, then that's fine, you can use that as well. But the next thing that I would enable is go ahead and go into options, go right here where it says virus total, and then click on checkvirustotal.com. Now, when you click on that, it's gonna ask you to agree to the terms of service for VirusTotal. So if you want to, you can go ahead and read the terms of service right here. Otherwise, you can go ahead and close it and just hit yes, and it will enable it right here. Now, what this does is it submits hashes for these specific programs to VirusTotal and then gives them a score based on what virus infections there could or could not be. Now, if we go through here, we can see that fan control is actually getting a detection on here. Now, fan control is a really cool piece of software that I highly recommend to use to control your fans. However, this is coming up as 1 out of 74 is detecting this as a virus. Now, if we click on this, what it'll do is it'll open up a browser window that'll tell us what this is. Well, MaxSecure, the MaxSecure database, I don't even know who that is, but it's the only one that's detecting it as that. Nobody else is, so you're probably okay. Typically, what you're looking for is a fairly high number of detections to determine that something is in fact malware. Now, I know that this program is not malware, so that 1 out of 74 is a false detection. But if we go ahead and scroll down here, you can see that on most of these, it's all just 0. But we do have one other one right here, and this is going to be OBS is coming up 1 out of 78. Well, if you look here, it's MaxSecure again, and they're detecting OBS, which is open broadcasting software. This is the program that I'm actually currently using to screen record. It's detecting that as a virus. Well, I can probably say that there's a good chance that that's not a very reliable virus database, since they've so far had 2 false detections in just this one lookup. But you know, it is what it is. But as you can see, you can kind of go through here and you can kind of get an idea of what's running on the system currently, and you can see some of the child processes and how they interact with each other, as well as their virus total score. And this can help you to determine if you're dealing with a computer that's infected. Now, typically, I always do this part of the malware removal at my customer's location. I do this primarily because there's no reason to do a malware removal if a system is not infected. For instance, if this was one of my customers' computers, I would tell them that there's no reason to do a malware removal on it because it doesn't appear to be infected. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule though. For instance, if my customer happened to be the victim of a tech support scam, then I typically recommend a malware removal regardless of whether or not I see indications of malware being on the system. And I do this for a couple of reasons. For one, most banks require it as part of the fraud investigation for them to re-enable your online banking. So, it's something you have to do anyway. And for two, if a scammer has remote access to your computer, it is no different than physical access, and they could have installed anything on the system. Now, while it's not common, I have had situations where systems looked perfectly clean, only to have the scammer take over the system while it's sitting on my bench in the middle of a malware removal. Yeah, I've actually only had that happen once, but it's kind of just proves the point that you can't just assume a system is clean because you don't see anything wrong with it. So normally I'll do a once over to try to see if anything is suspicious, but unfortunately this part takes experience. A lot of the steps that I just showed you can't really be learned on a YouTube video. You just have to know what you're looking for in most cases. However, a lot of the tools that are available will give you an edge on things that you're not sure about. Like having the ability to see virus total scores in Process Explorer helps a lot. And also being able to search the web for services from within Task Manager is also a big plus, but I think that's only available in Windows 11. Let me know in the comments below if Windows 10 does the same thing. But with that said, typically if you see something suspicious, you could just remove it. However, most of the time, if I believe a system is infected, then it's best to just go through a complete virus removal on the system rather than just getting rid of the suspicious service, unless it's something that you're specifically familiar with and you know you can just remove without any problems. This is because a lot of malware is really good at hiding, and once your system is infected, your antivirus is mostly useless. There's obviously exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, I don't trust any antivirus that's running on an infected system, because clearly something was able to get by the antivirus if the system is infected, right? So with that said, let's jump back on the system and I'll show you some of the tools that I use for malware removal. Okay, we can go ahead and close this. We're going to come back to that later, but we can close it for now. Now, these are some of the actual scanners that I use for malware removal, and most of these are all portable programs. In fact, I prefer portable programs to anything else. The only one that I have here that isn't portable is MalwareBytes, and the only reason is because it doesn't come as a portable program. But either way, the one I'm going to start with here is one called ADW Cleaner. So we're going to go ahead and launch this right here, and this is a program that's created by MalwareBytes. And to start it, all you have to do is just push scan now. It'll go through and scan your system. Now, mine's going to be pretty quick because I don't have much stuff installed on this, but sometimes this program can take a minute to finish. Now, ADW Cleaner is a program created by MalwareBytes that targets specifically annoying programs. This can be stuff like ad-supported software, spyware, as well as some programs that come pre-installed on pre-built computers. It also can remove many browser hijackings. This is a great little lightweight portable program that automatically updates itself when you launch it and does exactly what it promises to do. Now, let's move on to the next program and I'll show you that one. Okay, so if your scan's complete and it doesn't find anything, you can run a basic repair, which just does regular resets and changes a couple settings to their default values. Or you can just skip the basic repair and be done with it altogether. And then we're gonna go ahead and close that, and we're gonna run the next program, which is Hitman Pro. Now this one comes as a 64-bit and a 32-bit version, but the 32-bit version really doesn't matter anymore because most computers, in fact, all computers are gonna be 64-bit nowadays. So for this one, just go ahead and launch it. Say yes to the user account control, and then you get the Hitman Pro screen right here. Once you get the program started, just go ahead and hit next, and then you have the option here to install Hitman Pro on the computer, but like I said, I'm a fan of portable programs. I don't want any of that, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit no, and then hit next, and then at that point, it's gonna scan your computer. Now, in order for this program to work, it has to have an internet connection. And it's a good idea to have an internet connection for all of these programs because they do have automatic update routines and things of that nature. But this one specifically requires an internet connection to work. If you don't have an internet connection, it just doesn't function. Hitman Pro is a portable program that uses multiple virus databases to identify malicious software, as well as it kind of looks at behavior of certain programs as well that may not be listed in any virus database. That's one of the reasons why it needs an internet connection. It has to connect to those databases in order to do its scan. But the only annoyance with this program is that it will scan the system for free, but it requires you to activate it in order to remove what it finds. And I find that kind of annoying. Typically, what I do is just go through the list and manually remove whatever program or whatever malware that it may find, and that usually works out pretty good. So for the most part, this program works more than kind of like an investigative program than an actual malware removal. However, you can activate the program for free, and it allows you to use it at its full functionality for a set period of time. I think it might be 30 days. So if you want to try it out and you want it to remove whatever it needs to remove for you, then you can do it that way too. But let's move on to the next program. I'll show you that one now. Okay, so once this finds things, like I said, you can actually go through and remove this stuff manually. But as you can see, all it's found is tracking cookies. It really hasn't found any real malware on the system, so we can just go ahead and hit close. But in the event that you did want to actually activate this thing, then you would hit next, and it would, well, in this case, it just removed it all for free without activation because it was nothing but different cookies and stuff like that. But if we hit next, normally it will have a spot where you have to enter your email address in order to activate it for free. But in this case, we didn't need to do that, so we can go ahead and close it. Now, the next program we're looking at is a program called RogKiller. So we're going to go ahead and launch it real quick, hit yes to the user account control. Now, once this launches, it's going to download itself into this little folder right here. Normally, I just kind of, to keep things organized, I drag the folder down over here. Now, because this is a portable program, you can't use the real-time protection that comes with this program. But that's okay, because you really can't use it anyway, because it requires a premium account to use the real-time protection, and I wouldn't recommend that anyway. All we want is the scanner. So we're going to go ahead and click on scanner down here, and then we're going to go ahead and click on full scan and let it do a full scan of the computer. And the full scan may take quite a while to finish, but it has a bunch of ads that pop up all the time. Some of these might be helpful because it's telling me that I have a bunch of outdated programs, which I really don't care about, but that's okay. But it does show a lot of ads on the top and bottom of the screen while it's doing its scan. Now, RogKiller is a program that I've just recently started using, so I don't have a ton of experience with it. However, it seems to be a good malware scanner, and a lot of people like it, and it promises to be able to remove viruses, rootkits, as well as ransomware infections and other malware. My only real criticism of this program is that it has a ton of ads, and while it's doing the scan at least, I just find that kind of ironic since you're probably using this program to get rid of adware. However, the ads are relatively non-intrusive and you can ignore them while the scanner is running, and they are only part of the scanner, so it doesn't throw ads up on you all the time, but it is what it is, I guess. But anyway, let's move on to the next program, and I'll show you that one. Okay, so this thing is still going through and scanning. It hasn't detected anything because this computer is not infected. So it really isn't going to find anything. But either way, I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel right here just to go ahead and cancel the scan. And then I'm going to hit results. This is essentially what you would see if you went ahead and finished the scan normally. And it says everything is good. We're going to go ahead and hit finish. And it goes through and it tries to get you to buy the full version. But obviously we don't want that. So I'm just going to close the program. Now, the next one I'm looking at is just the good old MalwareBytes. And MalwareBytes has came a long way, but this one here, unfortunately, is the only one that isn't a portable program. I really wish MalwareBytes would make a portable version of its antivirus, but that might be counterproductive to its marketing strategy of giving a free antivirus, because ultimately, the reason why they're giving it to you for free is because they want you to buy it, and they want to bug you all the time about paying for it. But that's okay. We're not going to have to deal with that, and I'll show you why later. We're going to go ahead and hit install now. We're going to click personal and hit next, and we're going to skip this step. I don't want any browser extensions installed, and it's going to go through the install process. Now, the install process is going to take a second, but it should be fairly quick. Either way, I'm going to skip to where it's installed, and we'll move on from there. Once the install finishes, what I typically like to do is drag the icon down just to keep everything organized. Typically, I'm doing this on a customer's computer, so I want to keep just a small little area on the desktop for all of my tools and stuff, because I'm going to remove all of this stuff before I give it back to my customer. So this is the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way, but it's nice to keep things organized. So once you're finished, go ahead and hit Open MalwareBytes. And then at that point, I'm just going to go ahead and hit skip first, because it and then maybe later we're gonna jump through all of this stuff right here, and then we're just gonna get to the regular scan screen. And once you get to this point, all we're interested in is the scanner itself. So go ahead and go to the scanner and hit scan, and it's that easy. And it'll go through and it'll do a full scan on the system and see if it can find any malware. Now, when it comes to MalwareBytes, this is the only program that I install on a customer's computer when I'm doing malware removal. And that's primarily because MalwareBytes doesn't come as a portable program. If it did, then I would use the portable program, like I've said repeatedly, but I don't think they want to do that because I think they want to pop up ads all the time with the free one, but it is what it is. However, ultimately, MalwareBytes has kind of matured into a full-fledged antivirus at this point, and they offer the free version to essentially annoy you into upgrading to the full version. This is the primary reason why I always uninstall MalwareBytes after I'm done using it. But the reason why I use it is because it's great at malware removal. So it's definitely worth making it part of your toolkit for malware removal, but I wouldn't recommend using the paid version on a normal basis. Just install it, do your scans, and then once you're done, uninstall it. And it'll work like that whenever you need it. So typically, once I run my scanners, then I go through and see if there's anything that I missed. While scanners are great, they save you a ton of time. Sometimes you have to pull your sleeves up and manually remove malware. So let's jump back on the system and I'll show you how. Okay, well, it looks like MalwareBytes actually found some malware. So what is it? This one is, it's easy to do PC trans, huh? Interesting. Well, I think that's probably a false positive, but it is what it is. I'm gonna go ahead and close this, and normally I would go ahead and just let it quarantine that, but I'm pretty sure that's a false positive. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit close result and close this here. Now, typically once I run MalwareBytes, I'll go ahead and click it and go into control panel here. Go into uninstall a program, and I'll go ahead and uninstall MalwareBytes. I never leave it installed on a computer once I give it back to a customer. I always get rid of it because I only really use it as an uninstaller, and I really wish that this would just come as a portable program so I didn't have to do this each time. But it is what it is. It's gonna take a second to uninstall, so I'll skip ahead until it's uninstalled. Okay, so the uninstall is complete. We can go ahead and hit done, close our browser that it automatically opened, and close our add and remove programs. Now, the first thing that I typically do after I finish running scanners is I go back to Process Explorer. So we're gonna go ahead and right click on that and run it as administrator. Go ahead and hit yes, and it should open up Process Explorer like you had before, and it's gonna go ahead and submit all the hashes to all the different programs again for VirusTotal. So at this point, we're just gonna wanna go through and see if we find anything suspicious. We're just essentially doing a second look at what we did at the very beginning. And we wanna see if we see any signs at all that the scanners themselves didn't remove whatever infection it was that we had. And you can go through, and like I said before, you can go through, you can look at each of these programs individually, as well as looking at their VirusTotal score. And if you want to, you can actually click on it to go to VirusTotal itself to see all of the scores, to find out which scores are being detected by who. But like I said, when you come down to this one right here that does have a detection, you got this Max Secure right here. I don't think that's a very reliable malware database, but you know, that's me. Who knows? I don't know. I could be totally wrong. But I'm pretty sure fan control is not a virus. Either way, if we scroll through these right here and just kind of give a once over just to make sure that there's nothing suspicious and there's nothing actually being detected by VirusTotal as a virus itself. So from this point, once you go through that, you can go ahead and close it. Now, the next thing that I use is a program called Autoruns. Now, this is a fairly powerful program, but it kind of has a similar job as Process Explorer does. Now, while Process Explorer will show you what services are running, Autoruns shows you which services are launching, which actually is a really important distinction. Let me show you. If we right click on this thing, we're gonna go ahead and hit run as administrator, hit yes to the user account control. Now this one here, the dark mode is practically unusable. I'm sorry, but I cannot handle the dark mode on this program. So what I first do is when I first launch it, the first thing that I do is go over to options, theme, and then go to a light theme so I can actually read the program. So I think it works a lot better this way. Now, right here, you can see we're on the everything tab. This is gonna go through and show you everything that's launching with Windows, everything at all, from all different methods of launching. You have things from your current version run registry key all the way down to, you can actually see your startup folder in here. If I can find it in here, there might actually be nothing in my startup folder, so that might be why it's not showing up. And also, if you want, you can break this stuff down into these different tabs. Like for instance, you can go onto Win Login and see only stuff that launches during your login, or you can go on Explorer and see things that just launch from Explorer itself. So you can click on different tabs to find things that are running individually. Also, if we go back to the Everything tab right here, if we go into Options, and then we go into our scan options, as you can see, we also have VirusTotal integration into Autoruns itself. So we're gonna go ahead and hit rescan here. It's gonna want us to agree to the terms of service. Go ahead and close that, hit yes, and then it'll add the VirusTotal score to the side right here, so you can scroll through and you can see VirusTotal scores. However, for some reason, this one, oh, okay, it's just taking a minute to populate. So it's scanning each one individually, and then it's giving me the actual score once it finally populates. So it does take a minute to do that, but once it does that, you have the same scores as you had before. And as you can see, it is finding fan control, and it is marking it as a virus, which again is a false positive. So essentially all you're wanting to look for is things that are suspicious. Now, some of these things right here, like as you can see, all these things in yellow right here are essentially startup items that used to be there. At least the startup entries are still there in the scheduled tasks in this case, but the file itself isn't found anymore. Now, this is something suspicious. You can look at this and see signs of rootkits and things like that that would have this kind of behavior. However, in this case, that's not the case. However, it is something that you can look at and it can kind of give you an idea. And also you can look right here, see how fan control is red while the other ones are white? Well, all this means is that this specific program is from a publisher that's not verified. And of course he's not. This is a program that I install from GitHub. You guys have seen it before. I've shown it to you on videos before. It's a great little program, but it's not verified through Microsoft, and that's the reason why it's in red. And if you scroll through here, you can see other things that are the same way. You can see like these startup items right here that also are not verified as well, but these should be okay. However, it is interesting that if you look down to the second one, it is showing as being detected as a virus according to VirusTotal, at least 1 out of 76. So if we go ahead and click on that, find out what it is. Oh, this is a different program, and its malicious score is 100%. However, it's just one program that's doing this. So one thing you can do is if you want to kind of go more in depth and find out what something is, you can highlight what the actual file itself is. We can get it highlighted here, and then right click, go ahead and search for it just to find out what exactly it is. I'm pretty sure this is the Realtek driver that we had found before, so it's probably fine. But either way, you can kind of scroll through here and you can find out what exactly it's for, and then that way you can kind of help you to determine on whether or not something is a virus or not. But moving on. As we scroll down here, this is a great way to be able to stop programs from auto-starting with Windows as well. So if you have certain things that you don't want to launch with Windows, like for instance Steam, we can go over here, we can uncheck it, and then Steam won't launch with Windows. And you can do this with any other service that launches through all the different categories that it has with this program. This program is pretty powerful. I like it a lot. Ultimately, I wish this could be a step-by-step guide to removing malware in Windows, but unfortunately, it's just not possible to make a video like that. This is my process, but in between each of these different steps, there may be several other things that need to be done that differ between each system. Now, while I wish there was a single-click solution to removing malware that can be completely automated, there just isn't one. When it comes to removing malware from a system, it still requires experience. Some of the things that I would recommend doing is start cleaning up systems for your friends or family. Or what I used to do when I first got into this was I started infecting computers intentionally. My own computers, of course, and then removing malware from those. And that actually helps a lot more than you think it will. In fact, I actually had a collection of viruses on CD that I would use just for that purpose. But luckily, I don't have to deal with that anymore because I get my own from customers that have infected systems. However, this is my general process that I run on systems that come through my shop. If you have anything else that you do, let me know in the comments below. I'm always changing my process and using new tools as I find them. As an example, I've been using Process Explorer and autoruns for over a decade, but I didn't know about the VirusTotal integration until I started researching this video. It turned out that the versions of those programs that I was using on my thumb drive were from 2013. I guess I should probably update my tools more often. But with that said, it's always a good idea to have processes in place for certain jobs that you do on a regular basis as a technician. Another job that I have to deal with occasionally is systems that don't post. Check out this video to see my process on dealing with those systems. A system that won't turn on can be baffling to many people, but it doesn't have to be. As always, you guys have a great day.